My name is David Trotter, and I invented a thing called Muggi, which I was going to take you through how I came up with the idea and product development generally, and one or two other things that I'm thinking about and working on. And I hope all this goes to plan. Very quickly, me, David, I grew up in Scotland, and I was briefly in the army, learning to fly helicopters and, I suppose, learning to kill people. Never actually killed anyone, I hasten to add. I'm a Queen's bodyguard when I'm not doing what I'm doing now, up in Edinburgh. I left the army after 4 years and started working with these kind of large brands on an agency side of things, and we helped launch the Dome, but it was supposed to be in Birmingham rather than in London. Worked with Microsoft, BT. Had the pleasure of interviewing Jackie Stewart and Richard Branson 25 years ago when he was slightly less famous than he is now. And I've remembered one or two things that he said over the years, hopefully. Left that business, and 11 years ago set up a treehouse building company called Squirrel Design, which myself and my wife run. That's fun, but very hard work. Now I manufacture and sell Muggies. Originally invented for the sailing industry, but we sell them to motorhomes and caravan owners, health and safety workers in the office. And today, well, in fact, yesterday has been a huge day for me and Muggi, and I've been talking to distributors and OTs and individuals in wheelchairs, out of wheelchairs, and it's been a fantastically enlightening and sobering 2 days. More of that perhaps later. And this is my latest creation, which is another business we launched 3 weeks ago. It's a canopy. But that's enough about me. Let's get on to where Muggi started. Well, it all started about 3 years ago, sailing with a friend of mine, Tony. Lovely sunny day, coming back from France. It got a bit stormy, and he said, sort my mugs out, Trotsky. Started to come up with some ideas. Got home and made this prototype out of neoprene rubber. Sent it back to Tony the weekend after, and I got a text back saying, yippee, it works. And this is where it all started. Piece of rubber allowing mugs to ride safely in a sink, and then you can carry them one-handed up to the top of the galley. So that was it to start with. There we go. So we got rid of that fairly quickly and built some prototypes in foam, and we then came up with this little baby. And this is what we're selling at the moment. But as you know, life moves on, we wanted to get something even better. Here's a sneak preview of the new Muggi, which is better, more features, and it's going to be cheaper, and it's going to be available soon. I don't really see myself as an inventor. I have loved the outdoors, and I love building stuff. I love bringing together different technologies from different industries, combining them to hopefully provide a solution to a problem. Muggi is, I suppose, my first major invention, if that's want of a better word. Had some fairly highfalutin ideas of wonderful gunmetal and small shock absorber type designs, but it would cost a fortune. So Muggi is much more of a mass market solution to a problem. I am very patriotic, and I'm a great believer in making stuff in the UK to export it. And I want to export Muggi all over the world. We're already exporting to the continent and also to Australia, as well as throughout the UK. And we're about to export to the States in big numbers, hopefully, with the new Muggi. And I'm a great believer in trying to bring back some of the manufacturing skills that, well, they're already here in the UK, they just aren't used enough. And a lot of people are bringing business back from the Far East to Cornwall, a lot to the West Country, I think, to bring back the use of the skills that we've got here in this country. And I will make Muggi in the UK for as long as it's physically possible. And I don't see any reason why I should go overseas. Working with a great company here in Kent, they've been so supportive of me coming into this industry from complete novice point of view. I'm hoping that we're going to see Muggi in every walk of life that you can think of where you have a cup of tea, be it in the all the yachts around the world, but also in the market, in the workspace.
very, very successful show recently in the health and safety industry. And I was completely swamped for 3 days. Absolutely unbelievable reaction to the product. People seem to absolutely love it, and it solves 2 or 3 of their problems that they meet on a daily basis. So health and safety is all around the world. Sailing is all around the world. We're now able to make a product that's below £10, and I believe that the camping, caravanning, and kind of festival world, where where you're trying to carry cups of coffee around, even football matches, rugby matches, you try and carry 4 pints of beer in those flimsy, squidgy glasses. Yes, you might get a cardboard carrier that, if it gets wet, it falls apart and you throw it away and it creates lots of waste. Okay, you've got a one-off purchase of a Muggi, might even be a promotional item, but once you've got it, it's yours for life. Well, we've just arrived in Whitstable in the injection moulding factory and about to see the first Muggis coming off the line. So I'm very overexcited, I think is the terminology. They're still hot, straight out of the oven.
Is that literally hot?
Yeah, really hot. Wow. I am chuffed to bits. Oh, I'm so impressed. Nice finish, doesn't weigh very much. Ready for its little feet. And there's the logo in the middle. There she is. I am relieved, excited, very excited, and I couldn't be more happy. The finish is absolutely superb. I love it.
This one's got feet on it, hasn't it?
This one's going to have little rubber feet fitted onto here. Oh, here's one they've actually put the feet on. Here we go. Little rubbery, grippy feet to stop it moving about. So, oh, just brilliant. This is my empire.
That's probably enough of that. I've got to earn my place up here and talk myself. What I'm going to try and do is hopefully show that nothing's impossible and prove that 4 does go into 1. I'm going to be talking very briefly about the kind of inventing or light bulb moment, which all of us can have any time of the day. I'm not unique at all. A little bit about product development, and what I've passed around are the various stages that we went through initially. Firstly, we had the rubber neoprene version, which was just literally bashed out in my kitchen, and that worked. So then I thought I was onto something, and then we went to the orange prototype. Then that was then formalized into the blue one, which we did sell for about a year, but it was too expensive. We then went to the plastic injection molded version, which is now made in Kent at Whitstable, following the heavy 3D printed model, which took about 2 days to print, and that was 4 years ago. You could print that probably overnight now on one of these plastic 3D printers. So that industry has rocketed through so quick, and it's quite an exciting thing for inventors. Then briefly about manufacturing, and then sales, and then some export, because we do actually manage to export. My light bulb moment, as I've kind of covered it in the video, really. We were just sailing back on a boat, and my mate Tony said, sort my mugs out, and that's kind of what I did. But there was obviously something in there that was saying to me that perhaps this might be something serious to put my efforts into. And so you have to evaluate why on earth you're going to do it, and then you've got to work out whether or not there is a problem that needs solving, and there kind of was, I suppose. I went into this pretty naively, I have to say, and it was 4 years ago, and I'm still pretty naive. And you then have to make a big risk assessment on both your own mental health, physical, and also your financial situation. Now, I was trying to run another business building tree houses at the time, but this just was in me and I had to get out and do it. So I did. I guess you need to ask for help, which is something I probably didn't do initially. And that's, ask your friends and do the famous mum test, which is a Richard Branson thing I read recently. I think it's quite nice, because your mum will always, hopefully, support you. But I would say take the reply with a pinch of salt. And you have got to completely and utterly, 100% believe in your product If you don't, no one else will. And that drives some of your friends to distraction because you never stop talking about it. But if they're good friends, they'll still be with you. Basically, I suppose it's, know your limits, and it's you who makes it happen at the end of the day. Now, I've already forgotten one bit of what I was going to show you today because I've got to prove that 4 does go into one. Excuse me. I've got 4 mugs here to hopefully try and illustrate what I'm talking about. So we're talking about inventing, so that's number 1. We're now going to move, I think, hopefully, into product development and testing, and I've got a mug for that, so that's number 2. It's a hell of a big step to jump into the inventing kind of world, and it's a very lonely place, or can be. You are just so driven, or have to be so driven, and everything gets in your way. You will have setbacks, and it's kind of 3 steps forwards, 2 steps back, etc. I kind of equate it to kind of yomping, I suppose. You just got to keep going, whatever the hell is going on around you. And everything will take far, far longer than you planned. And people won't do what they say they were going to do. But again, it's up to you to keep driving it forward. I already mentioned the 3D printing. I think it would be, it is a much, much faster process now that technology's moved on. But I have to say, it is an extremely exciting phase. Because when I first picked up that blue thing, it was almost like having my 3rd child. I've got 2 kids. But it was that exciting, almost. It's a question then of doing some more testing on that product, and again, use your friends. Again, you can use the mum test, but I would suggest even more of a pinch of salt at this stage. Get your product out there. You've just got to push and push and push, because I'm just a tiny little cog in a huge, huge universe. Let people use it, try it, touch it, feel it. Try and get Duncan Ballantyne to break it. He seems to try and break most things. He hasn't had his hands on this yet. But you've then also, at the same time as of getting it out there, you've got to confirm with people that they actually want to buy it. And it's going to solve their problems. You've also got to work out where you're going to sell it. And I was very, very kind of tunnel vision, I suppose, at this point, and I wanted to sell it to every boat in the world. And I was quite convinced I was going to, more or less. I hadn't really considered the other markets terribly much. But that's kind of happened almost organically, I suppose. And then you still got this thing of support. And I have to mention it at this point, and I'm so proud of her. My wife, Sarah, has been an absolute tower of strength for me, and I wouldn't be here today without her, for lots of reasons. But she really has been fantastic, and she's run the squirrel business while I've been wasting my time on this initially. Try and get some expert advice as well. I work with a brilliant chap from the Directors Centre called Martin Price, who is one of those individuals that seems to know stuff about everything, and you ask him a simple question expecting a 1-line email back, and you get a 3-page business plan for the next 5 years. He really does offer more value than he could possibly think he does. Right, I think we're on to our 3rd mug, and hopefully I'll get them in the right order. No, I'm not in manufacturing yet. We are in manufacturing. You can tell I've only done this never before. I was looking to make a plastic product, and so I obviously thought, do I go to China? Do I do it in the UK? And I very, very quickly decided I wasn't going to go to China for lots of reasons. And people say to me, well, isn't it far too expensive to make it here? And quite honestly, it isn't. And I had a recent cost of making the existing Muggi, which is the red one that went round. And it was going to be about 4 or 5p cheaper, more cheaper in China. But then I've got to ship them back here, and I've got to order probably 30,000 of them at a time, which I ain't got the money to do that. And so I've got a lot more flexibility and control over colours, quality, quantity. And where we make them currently in Whitstable in Kent, we can make 600 at a time if we want to. And that's kind of our minimum stock level. If it goes below that, then we just make some more. It couldn't be easier. Work with a lovely, lovely team, who I think I mentioned later on when I talk about suppliers. But this is a big, big point for someone like myself or companies like myself, because Muggi is me. There's nothing else behind Muggi. I am the marketing, sales, distribution, inventing, everything. There will be people eventually, but you know, it's only the second year. But cash flow is massive. I mean, really massive, far more than I ever thought. And we can kind of manage that quite well with very, very small stock orders. And I felt also, if I made it in the UK, apart from kind of wanting to support the UK manufacturing industry, is that we get a lot less likelihood that it might be copied originally. We make it, as I say, in Whitstable. It's plastic injection molding, and I won't go into the technicalities of that because I don't really know it all myself, but if anyone wants to ask, you're very welcome to. They were absolutely fantastic. Lovely team, Simon, Doreen and Megan. It's a family unit, and they can all do everything from driving the forklift truck to pressing the button and programming the plastic in. And I was a complete newcomer to the business, and they just kind of held my hand all the way through. They are so passionate about their work, and I think that's another word that's very important. I try and be passionate about what I do. And they're fun to work with, good advice, and they also manufacture, store, and dispatch the product for me. So again, it's one email, and it goes out to distributors in this country or other countries. We're in manufacturing. I have done the mug. Cool. We wanted to keep it simple, a bit like myself, and straightforward. So we've got one product. It comes in 4 colors. Having said that, we've just added an extra color, the purple. Red, blue, grey. What's the other one? Pink and purple. Keeping it relatively straightforward. We sell very much to the sailing market in 8 countries in Europe, Australia and New Zealand. And we are now selling into the camping caravanning market in this country in quite a big way through a central distributor, a French company, but are based in the UK. Then the health and safety side is direct sales to companies like Warburton's, Severn Trent Water. Every Coventry Building Society has a Muggi behind the counter. They're not allowed to carry cups of coffee around unless it's in a Muggi. That I think is going to be quite a big market for us, probably bigger than the sailing market. Inland waterways and outdoor stuff is also coming under the motorhome and caravanning company because they sell chemicals to longboat users. But the independent living side of things, I was up here at the Good Food Show 3 months ago, I think it was, and lady in the purple shirt, actually, I've just seen you again because you came past this morning. It's nice to see you again. I didn't pay her to come, I promise. I don't think. She said you should be down at the OT show down 2 halls. So I went down, had a look, had a chat with a couple of businesses from this side, and suddenly realized that I think we were possibly missing a trick. At that show, I actually sold probably half a dozen Muggis to people who had either Parkinson's or relatives with Parkinson's disease and someone in a wheelchair. And then it just sort of suddenly clicked. Underneath the Muggi, we have 4 little rubber feet which sort of sit on your thighs quite well. So I'm really pleased to be here. I think this market, for me, is going to probably be as big as this market, easily. The number of OTs that I've spoken to this morning get very excited about it, and they're definitely the people I want to get it out into the marketplace through. So if anyone knows of any good contacts through OTs, please let me know. I'm also trying to get to speak to the NHS, but that's quite tricky. I'm going to just quickly mention Made in Britain. It's a campaign that I'm involved with. It's a non-profit organisation. It's 3 or 4 board directors, companies, owners of companies. And they're launching this rather clever logo, which I think is brilliant. I love this one as well, but I think this one's better. And it's going to be a kind of a seal of approval, a mark of it's made in the UK. And it's very stringent rules to be able to use the mark. It costs £100 to become a member each year, which, ideally is not very much, so that's good. But we all talk to each other, which I'm finding that now already. And they're signing up about 20 companies a week or a month, whatever it is, a week. So it's a campaign that's gathering momentum. It's going to be featured quite heavily at a couple of shows. I think it's Family Fair in Suffolk somewhere, but then at the IBF, which is the International Federation for Business, on the 25th of July, which is about 100 manufacturers in the UK all getting together. They're actually going to make a big splash of this in the press, and I believe sort of various members of Parliament are going to be there. And what's even funkier is that they're going to use my other invention to launch the product on, which I'll show you very briefly at the end. So great organisation to be involved with, and I think if you are involved with making stuff in the UK, you should definitely sign up with them. I thoroughly recommend them. Right, coming on to sales. How am I doing for time? Kian, am I all right? Sales, fourth mug. There we go. 4 does go into 1. My point made, hopefully. Does that make sense? You get to the point where you're going to find out whether your product's going to work in the market. And hopefully it floats and flies. And mine won't, my original one won't sink because it floats anyway, but it's floating at the moment. And hopefully it will fly eventually. I've put this picture up here. It's something I actually learned from a UKTI exporting workshop I went on. And there were 2 things that I took away from it. One was delegate, and one was stop, look, and listen. And I'm quite an impulsive individual, and I tend to rush into things a bit too fast sometimes. And it's a very important lesson that I've learned, is to kind of just get the idea, get all the enthusiasm, and then just stop for a moment and rethink and make sure you're going down the right alleyway. Otherwise, you might find yourself going in the wrong direction. I put in advertising in PR just to say that as a small brand company, advertising doesn't work for me at all. And I'm very much a kind of a supporter of the PR side. And that really means, again, getting out there and pushing yourself as much as possible onto anybody, talking to anybody. And I mean, I'll just illustrate that very briefly. I was in the speaker's lounge having a sandwich earlier, and I bumped into a lovely lady in a wheelchair called Claire Lomas, who is doing well, I think she did the marathon in a wheelchair or something a few years ago, and is raising lots of money for various charities. And only 5 minutes earlier, I've been saying I've got to get a photograph of someone in a wheelchair for this show, because I haven't got one to show anybody. And she said, no problem at all, give us a mug. Well, I actually gave her a Muggi, because purple's her favourite colour, so she got a purple Muggi. And she allowed me to take a photograph of her, and I've now tweeted that out, and I've got a photograph that I can use to market Muggi to people in wheelchairs. And that was just a conversation over a bag of crisps and a glass of water, which would have cost me hundreds to do it normally. So that was just literally 10 minutes ago. What have we got? Secure solid level of sales in the UK. Again, this is my other big learning point. I am exporting, as I say, 12 countries or something overseas. But I should probably have, 2 years ago, concentrated more on my UK sales in all the different markets if I knew they were there, and then thought about exporting. It hasn't been detrimental, but because it's all incremental sales on UK sales. But if I was to be brutally honest, I would have probably done it a couple of years further down the line. But it was probably my impulsiveness, and it was before I spoke to stop, look, and listen people. Internet is good for us. It's not huge at the moment, but it will get bigger the more, as more people have them, and you've got friends who've got them. You say, well, where'd you get that? Or you can get them online, blah blah blah. But it's a good way of testing the water overseas, and we sell them all over the world, from the east coast of Canada to someone in Vladivostok, a Russian, bought one the other day. I'd love to know how he found out about us, but and I hope it got there. I do have to just put in this last point of if you are thinking of exporting, just make sure that you need to export. Sorry. Because not everyone should export for obvious reasons. But if it's appropriate, then I would recommend it, because it's all extra stuff. But there are pitfalls, and I'm not going to go into a huge number of them, because that's what the UKTI will probably do. But my export strategy, big word, was to sell a Muggi to every boat in the world. Now, I've got a long way to go on that, but that's really what I based it on, and that's where we're at. I've covered some of this already, I apologise. But those are the countries we're selling in. I did an overseas exhibition, and again, just talking to anybody, but I managed to get some funding from these people, which I was amazed at. And I've used, I suppose, 3 or 4 different government agencies, as a startup. And I have to say, and it's not because I'm on this stand, they're not paying me to do this, I have had some very useful finance cash from the UKTI in the form of £300 to be able to fly to Spain to talk to a distributor, £400 to help build an exhibition stand in Holland, a little bit of money to help with the website to overseas it, make it a bit more overseas friendly. So it's a thing called passport to export, but again, I'm sure if you ask these guys, they'll tell you all about it. Very briefly on product protection and identity, you can spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on protecting your idea, and us inventors, stroke entrepreneurs, I'm told I am now, get very precious about our things, and we're probably too precious in some ways. I have design registered Muggi, so the shape and the sort of size of it is protected. It's not patented, because I wouldn't be able to afford, A, to patent it, or to defend the patent if anyone wanted to challenge it. So I've taken the view that I'm going to be the first into the market, and if you want to carry mugs in a thing, Muggi's the one to do it with. And I think it's quite a clever piece of design. It can't get much simpler. If anyone's got any ideas, please tell me. And I like the identity. It's fun and it's sort of lively, and I came up with it myself, so I'm quite pleased with that. So all I would say is don't spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on protection and identity, because it will go on and on and on. Concentrate the money on getting the product out there, is what I would say. And that sort of links into the legal fees. They just go on and on. They all talk to each other. I mean, we just briefly, we had a challenge on the word Muggi from a company called Muggi, M-U-J-I, who are a Japanese business. They sell bamboo bowls and shoes and bits and pieces. Very trendy design stuff. Quite how they thought Muggi was going to infringe on their business, I'm not sure. But that was 3 or 4 letters backwards and forwards from my lawyer to their lawyer, which was another £1,200, £1,500 that I didn't have in the first place. And that can just go on quietly in the background, and you don't know what's going on. So keep it simple, is what I say. Hopefully my slides are keeping up with me. These are 4 or 5, whatever it is, things that attributed to this man here, who I've never spoken to since I interviewed him, however many it was, 25 years ago, in his home in Kensington. Funnily enough, about entrepreneurism. We were doing a roadshow for students, and he couldn't be with us on the roadshow. I actually employed Alan Sugar as our presenter, and then I fired him at the end of the show. So not many people can say that, I hope. But Richard, Mr. Branson, I should call him, I don't know him. These are some things that hopefully I try and not live by, but I believe in all of them very, very much. And it's about this, the buck stopping somewhere, and it stops with you. And if you don't do it, no one else will. I love the word obsessive attention to detail without being too anal, I suppose. Because again, no one else will. You've got to really, again, it comes back to believing in your product and pushing and pushing and pushing and talking to anyone that you can possibly find. Deliver outrageous value, and I think I briefly touched on that earlier with the chap Martin Price, who, I expect a one-line answer, and he comes back with 3 or 4 pages of good thought-out material, which is fantastic. Never stop improving, which is something I'm still working on with Muggi. Again, I'll give you a sneak preview. Have fun. We've only got one shot at this time on the stage, so stage of life, I suppose. And if we don't enjoy it while we're here, then it's a bit shit, really. Oh, excuse my French. There's no point in doing it unless you're not having fun. And I'm very lucky with the things that I'm very lucky anyway, having met some of the people here. But the things that sorry, I've lost my place. No, I met a guy this morning. I'll just tell you, I met a guy this morning who is completely blind. And he was with his helper. And she was describing a Muggi to him, and he was feeling the Muggi. And I asked him if he could read what was underneath it. And underneath here is a Union Jack, and it says "Made in Britain" on it. And he put his hands underneath, and I didn't tell him what was on there, and he could read that with his fingers, which completely blew me away, I'm afraid. And he makes tea in his office each day, but he can't carry the teas down the office because he's blind. completely blind. And so he makes the tea, and then everyone gets up from their desks and walks down the hall, picks up their teas and goes back to their desks. And hopefully he's going back to the stand this afternoon with his helper, and my assistant will sell him a Muggi at trade price. I'm not going to give it away, because I think that's slightly condescending, but he's going to hopefully buy a Muggi for £5. And on Monday morning, he's going to make tea for the rest of his office, and hopefully walk down the office with 4 cups of tea in there. And I'm just dying to see the faces of the guys in the office when he does that. So that, to me, was quite an experience. So have fun, and talk to anyone that you can possibly talk to, and keep moving forward. Now, I have no idea what's happening next, I hope. Right, I'm almost there, so please bear with me. You've always got to make new products and new developments with your product. And Muggi is so simple that I'm not really sure you can get much simpler. But there are 2 things here. These are based on the original Muggi. That one's aluminium. It's a man's Muggi, or a very strong lady's Muggi. And this one's made of extremely expensive handmade plywood, and then stuff that hopefully makes it all change colour a bit. These are, I've never sold any of these, but this will cost you £600, and that will cost you £1,200 if you wanted them. So we're not selling many of those. But what I am doing is I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to convince someone like, I don't know, Starbucks, Costa, McDonald's, to stop using those ridiculous pieces of cardboard and create lots of waste, and make a Muggi that is cheap enough and reusable enough and brandable, so it becomes a promotional item. This here, this is the new to-be Muggi. It won't replace that one, but this one is almost lighter than air, and that's all I can show you, I'm afraid. But that's going to go over to the States, hopefully, in the next 3 or 4 weeks to Walmart, and if they say they love it, then that'll be very good for Muggi. Becomes a promotional product, hopefully, because this, the current Muggi can also be printed on if people want to, but it's still quite an expensive product. But in the development of Muggi, when I showed this to Hydropool Spas 4 years ago, I said, "Would you like a floating mug holder?" So I threw it into their Hydropool thing, jacuzzi, and it was floating about with mugs in. And they said, "Yeah, I love it, but can you do one for wine glasses?" So I went home that night and chopped it up and came up with this one, which these are still available if anyone has a jacuzzi. I personally don't like jacuzzis, but the wine glasses all slot into this, and then it floats about in the jacuzzi. So that's a bit of off-the-wall product development. But if I then go back into here, while we were making this is a routed prototype. I said, well, can we make it fly? And this one flies quite well. But we could also make that into a wine glass carrier. But then we came up with this one here. And this is completely different. This is currently called Vino Disc. And this is a floating wine glass carrier for swimming pools. But it will also carry 4 glasses around a bottle of wine. And this is all very top secret, so you're never allowed to mention either of these again, please. Now it's going to be broadcast everywhere. So those are the other things that are trying to get out of my head at the moment, and in fact those are sort of out. What I'd love to do is just show you a quick video. It's only about a minute of my next product. It's nothing to do with this industry, but well, I know I'll show it. Here we go. Wow, gosh, never seen it like that before. Love it.
It offers something that the industry's been looking for quite a while.
It's all totally indestructible, that's the main thing, and the actual structure itself is ridiculously strong.
merchandising, car companies. It gives you a visibility on the field of play.
The reactions of people have been absolutely phenomenal.
So that's my latest invention. We launched that 3 weeks ago into the kind of exhibition Corporate Hospitality Word. And they're going to pop up in things like sort of various polo matches. We're doing the Verve Clicquot Gold Cup final at Cowdrey for the members. We are doing the UK Championship kite racing surfing championships down in Exmouth on the beach with some parties at night with all the lights and stuff. So that'd be quite fun. And that, you know, it can be used for just about anything. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you very much.
Ryan! 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 Ryan!
Oh!
Been calling you. Oh, come on. You won't turn your hair aid on next time.